Well, hey, on today's show, we have the host of the Tragedy Academy podcast, going to talk to us about the world of podcasting and his journey in meditation. Come on, welcome to the show, Jay Hicks. Awesome. Well, Jay, thank you so much for being on the show.
Hey, thanks for having me, Alec. I'm super excited.
Dude, I appreciate it, man. I've been listening to your show for a little bit now, and just really, honestly, for what I do, very inspired by what you have been doing for a while. So I'm excited to get to know you and to get to know your expertise in the podcasting field here for a little bit. You've been doing it for a while, right?
Yeah, I think I've been doing it for like 6 or 7 years now.
Sheesh. Wow.
It's always something different. Mm-hmm. Always something fun, enlightening. I mean, there's endless supply of things to discuss.
For sure. Yeah.
And I think podcasting is one of those rare modicums where you become a family member to the people that are listening to you. I don't think that we give it enough credit because you are placed in the closest place in anybody's mind, and that is their ear. And you're sitting there having private conversations with them. It gets to a point where people will walk away into their life after they remove those headphones and they start to consider what would they do if they were doing this. I wonder what my favorite podcaster would say if I were laughing at this too, or they were thinking this. And you create a bond with people in that manner. So I feel like it's one of the rare platforms where you get to truly impact people from within. And it does come with an onus of responsibility because to influence is something that comes with responsibility.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, even doing it for just a little bit here now, you can not feel the impact that you're having, right? You don't realize what you're doing, like in this, me and you sitting down tonight and recording, but like the relationship that it's building between us and a listener, but also like, dude, just what they're learning from the conversation. Like that's what I love about the style of show that you guys run. And then also like from what I've been doing is just, man, there's so many people around us or in connection with us that just having a deep conversation, like your one on stem cells recently that you just did, like learning more about that is probably like more information, more learning that someone is doing that week than any other thing that they're doing, right? They may be watching their favorite sitcom at night or whatever, but as far as learning and growing themselves, this is the space where they do it.
I take this very seriously. I'm glad you brought that up because, and I'll talk to creators as a whole yourself. In my mind, it is a responsibility and an onus on us to put the best product we can forward because there is such a little amount of time that people will allocate to a mindful moment. Yeah. Right? So few. We're not even giving them up in entertainment. We're accepting what's being given to us. But when somebody dedicates you that hour, it is on you to give them something worthwhile to hear, something that can impact them, something that can give them relief. Right? We have friends, Florida Man on Florida Man, Wayne and them. Dude, those guys talk about some of the funniest crap. And I know personally, when I listen to their show, I feel like a burden's been lifted off of me for a while. I'm in a different world and I can rely on that. Yeah. And that's the other thing. When you have a podcast, you got to be reliable. It's got to come out because again, we have short attention spans as well as, a lack of mindful moments. Yeah. And if you don't show up at the door with pizza on Wednesday every week and you skip 2 weeks, they're already ordering somewhere else. They might have given you that one, but after that, they're gone. You are unfaithful.
Yeah. That something that you said too was always my thing. Even now, it's like when people like text me or talk to me when I see them and just say, "Hey, I checked out your show. I loved it." It means so much to me. Obviously, not that they just took out their time, but I know this is different than like if I was an artist, and I think artists do incredible, but like a musician. Hey, take 3 minutes out of your day and listen to my song. No, you took about an hour out of your day, whether it was peace or whether it was at one point, you took an hour just to listen to me and someone else talk. That's a commitment.
I don't listen to myself for an hour.
No, not at all.
No. I get what you mean. And conversely, it's kind of funny. I do love when people do take the time to listen to it. It means more than you know, or actually it means you know what it means,
Yeah.
right? At the end of the day. But the fact that they took the time to listen to my, my show, give me back that information is priceless. But on the other token, when I first started this, I was super green. I had no audio background, no video background, nothing. I'd never even sat in front of a mic. So I would put together stuff and I'm like, I'm really deep into the audio. I think things are just coming together. I'm getting some stuff out there and I'm asking my friends, and my friends are like, dude, it's great. I love it. Such a great job. And I'm looking at the stats.
Like,
you couldn't have downloaded it. There's only 2 and I'm one of them and my mom's the other.
Yeah.
Stop telling me you listen to my show. But you
can't just post about it. Just listen to a second. Yeah.
Well, you learn a lesson in that, right? If I'm creating for other people and not from a passionate place, then it's not going to ever be consumable, or they're not going to want to consume it. It needs to come from that place that gives them something to even appreciate.
Yeah, that is true. I just a little bit to bring like my thoughts on that too. When I kind of got to the point, like it was actually beginning of this year, we're recording, that I was like, man, I'm going to do this. I'm going to start a podcast. I enjoy sitting down with people. I enjoy these conversations. I love this world. I really want to do this. I took, and I'm sure there's other schools of thought. I took like 6-ish months of just really honing in on, okay, what is it that I want to do? And I had like, a few people in my life that I allow to like give me advice and stuff like that. And people were giving me great ideas. But at the end of the day, some of them were not necessarily the thing that I was most passionate about. Yeah, maybe I may be good in this area, like in everyday life, but it's not something that maybe I feel overly passionate about to do this long term. And what I got down to was, man, the thing that I am passionate about is sitting down with people, just having an open conversation, learning about their experiences, and whether this is someone that I feel like is super important by their following status or whatever, or somebody that like, dude, like I actually ran into somebody the other day at a coffee shop, found out he's a 3-time Grammy nominated bass player, lives in Lakeland, and he's going to come on the show soon, which is awesome. But just like that, like that's what I love is, man, there is uniqueness all around us. This is what I want to provide. And I do think that people listening, hopefully they feel that. Hopefully they hear like, oh man, this is just cool. This is honest conversation. This is something that I'm learning from, whether it's, our mayor his episode is actually gonna be from where we're recording this today. It's dropping next week.
Oh, that's awesome.
And stuff like that. So it's cool to see just different perspectives of life all around,
That's really what it's all about. When I started the show, probably, I think it was like 6-7 years ago, much like yourself, I did take the time up front to build a foundation and an understanding of what it is that I wanted to put out. I left the corporate world. I was a solution architect for 2 of the largest consulting firms in the world. And I had run operations in Chennai, Hyderabad, and some other countries.
Wow.
And I hated it. I was damn good at it.
Yeah.
But I hated it. And what it taught me after, some time, I decided to start meditating because I just kind of hit my knees in life where I was like, I know I'm supposed to be doing something different. I know this is not me and there's more to this. I just don't know what it is. Yeah. Right. So I just started meditating every single day, and it allowed me to realize that I had to be myself in life in order to reap the rewards of happiness.
Yeah.
Right. So I was going out there, and you'll see on our logo, it's 2 masks, right? And it's sock and buskin, the theater masks.
Yeah.
But they're symbolic to me in that they show that there's 2 sides to everything inside of us. And on top of that, we all carry masks. We carry personalities, right?
Yeah.
We have all of these different ways that we approach people. If your mom called you or a customer service person called you, I want you to see what your voice sounded like in each one of them.
So true. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. That's a good
Problem
point.
is those are different characters. Those are memories that you have to maintain for that role. Who was I in that situation?
Yeah.
What does that spider web look like after all your interactions look in life? It's infinite, right?
Yeah.
When in reality, all you had to do was just be yourself, accept yourself unconditionally, and people will come to you, the ones that you want. Why do you want people that like a solution architect to come hang out with you? I don't want to be a solution architect. Why would I want solution architect friends? Right?
Right.
But I wasn't thinking about it that way. It
Yeah.
was chasing, the corporate dream, or they sell, I grew up poor. So it's like you idolize the middle class. They're like, oh, that's where they're happy.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
you go get your degrees, go do your thing, and you'll be happy when you get there.
Yeah.
No.
That is, it's so true. It's interesting to hear, because I think that's like a principle that happens often in life, principle or whatever the better word is for that. But just like being so good at something, but it's not the thing that makes you happy. And I think sometimes that's hard for us. Like when we take a lot of advice or criticism from our friends or from the people around us, where they're like, oh, you're just so good at it. You got to keep doing it. You got to keep doing it. And it's like, man, but deep down, there's probably only a very small people, or really only ourselves, that knows this is not making me happy. Like I've met a lot of, and I'm sure you could say this too, I've met a lot of very wealthy people that are not happy.
Dude.
They're crushed. They're going after it. They've made the middle class or higher class dream, and it's just not working out for them.
Such bullshit. Right?
Yeah.
When you see people smiling with money, unless they are truly giving to their passion and getting that money from that,
Yeah.
it's bullshit. Right?
Yeah.
It just, sorry, my language.
No,
is
you're
a
good.
family.
You're good,
It's
dude. You're
BS,
good. Yeah,
right?
yeah. We'll fix it.
So-
It's good.
It goes back to that mask and the portrayal.
Yeah.
And what it is you want people to see you as versus just showing up as yourself.
Yeah.
Right? There's a burden in not being yourself. And that burden creates depression, anxiety, and all of these problems over time, because inauthenticity creates that extra weight I was discussing, that bag of masks. Eventually you're going to hunch over until what? You let it go. That's the big ironic part of it, is that you're actually holding your own demons.
Yeah. Do you feel like sometimes people can get so far down the road in that other mask? You know what I mean? Hopefully this makes sense. They get so far down the road in just like, well, this is what I've always been told I'm good at, and this is what I'm chasing, and whatever. It's like that they get to a point where I'm like, well, there's no way I could turn back. You know what I mean? There's no way I could chase the dream.
100% would say that out of fear.
Yeah.
Right? It's always out of fear.
Because what if I fail? Right? That's
what
the question.
What if I fail? What does failure look like? What are people going to say about me?
Yeah.
Right? But I would argue those people that do take that step could probably look back and give you some insight. And my take on it is authenticity and being yourself is like walking up to a cliff with a blindfold on, but it actually being a curb. You will have all the anticipation and fear of falling off of a cliff in order to just be yourself. But that step is so short that you might trip.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
Because being you actually means you get to let go of everything.
That's good. Right? Yeah. I had some early stages of this show of kind of just formulating it all together. I had somebody tell me, and I know what they meant, and I know they actually meant well. So hold nothing against this person, but just trying to give me advice.
Did they say bless your heart?
Yeah, like,
bless your heart.
Another white guy in his 30s starting a podcast. This is going to go well. There's none of them out there.
It's so true.
Yeah.
Listen to you trying to give back for your guilt.
Right. No, but what he said was, hey, I get the first part of it was, and this was something I actually did need to hear. Part of it is something I didn't need to hear. You just got to go for it. You just got to start doing it. But he also added kind of like, because, for the longest time, nobody's going to listen. And that got in my head a little bit, which I got the idea, and maybe this is more of a personal thing than it is what he said, but just like nobody's going to listen for a while. And I was like, it got in my head where I was like, man, if nobody's going to listen, why am I doing this? But then it was like, hey, okay, this is a great question for me. Why am I doing this? Am I doing this for other people, so make other people happy? Or am I doing this because I love this? And I can confidently say now, I love doing this. Like, it is so fun and great for me. But that thought can seep in, and you're right, that can make it feel like there's a cliff in front of me.
Right. Would you dance if no one was looking? If you probably would.
Yeah. Right.
That's your podcast.
Yeah.
If you're going to start a show, you damn well better pick something you love. To your point, other people's opinions about your art when you're creating it. I like to use this analogy where if I were standing at a canvas painting what I loved the first time, and then somebody wanted to give me money for it the second time, right? We don't reproduce that often. Most of the time, people will look over their shoulder for the opinions of the people that are going to give them the money for whatever art they're putting on the wall, right?
Yeah, right.
And how good are you at painting looking over your shoulder, right?
Not at all,
and
yeah.
Is it art if it was made to sell? Probably not.
Right.
Or would it have been made without, having the need to be sold, right?
Yeah. That's what I love about, like, I mean, bringing that to actual art. I feel like some of the most beautiful art out there is from artists who were so unpopular during their time, right? It wasn't for money. They struggled the whole way. And now 10, 20, 30 years later, or centuries later, however long, we're looking back and being like, oh man, that's beautiful. This is, I don't know why it's popped in my mind, but dude, I think the coolest museum I've ever been to, maybe this is a rabbit trail, is the museum in Philly where like Rocky did the steps.
Yeah.
Have you ever been there?
No, I have not, but
so
I mean,
cool.
that's iconic.
It's huge and you cannot do it in a day, but there's stuff in there. There's art in there where I'm like, it blows me away. I can sit here and look at this, thing that was maybe just a passive piece that was created in 400 BC, where I'm like, where were they able to do this at that time? Yeah.
It comes from a place within. It honestly does. I believe that we are all a infinite flame. Each and every one of us have one. But in childhood, depending on how we're raised and how we enter into our understandings, so around like 7 years old, a lot of people might get a glass that gets placed over that flame that has just a small amount of air to get into, and they will live their life with all that potential never being used. My biggest fear at death, aside from losing my family, is leaving potential on the table, looking back and going, shit, I had all that. And I'm the first one to say that I do not do everything that I say you should do all the time.
Sure, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I have my hangups with authenticity, so many. I was bullied, right? I was, bullied for being trans when I wasn't in a southern town because I had gynecomastia.
Yeah.
You couldn't get any worse than, well, you could get worse, right?
Yeah.
But I have my inner demons, and my self-worth is been broken down so many different ways, and I've created I'm the cool soldier guy, I'm the corporate guy that hides all that behind it. But in the end, it's that raw human in there, that child that needs to be given the chance to create something on their own, to be appreciated. Because you can tell a kid, shut up, don't talk, you're being loud right now, people don't like it when you're loud. Horrible, right? Because from then on out, they'll likely never reach their full potential, because their fear will be, I will not be loved if I open my mouth all the way. Imagine if we said that to Whitney Houston.
Yeah, right?
Yeah. Like, you might want to keep those lower notes. But you know who told him to do that? The person that would say that is the person that is unwilling to act on their authenticity. And it's easier to tell someone who is that they shouldn't. Than to get out of my victim chair or whatever static state I'm in and become part of the beautiful collage that is life. Yeah. Right?
Well, I've always heard it said too, it's to kind of to that last piece is like, hurting people want to hurt people, right? If you're like, if I don't feel super confident about myself and I look at somebody who has some confidence, or, I mean, and that's not a good thing. That's a bad attribute that we have to work through. But like, then I'm more likely to say, hey, you shouldn't do that. People don't like that. That's not a good thing, man. That puts a lot of, I know you're a recent dad too, but that puts a lot of pressure on me as a dad with two boys to look at like, man, I want to raise up good men, but I like discipline wise, but I also want them to be creative, and I also want them to go for it. I do think, for me, going back to some of your story, it definitely was not the coolest kid in elementary, middle, high school, and I definitely experienced some of that. Like, bullying. I would say there was moments where I was bullied, but I was also a very stubborn, hard-headed kid where I'd send it right back to people. But that did build up a wall. I am grateful though. I did had some parents who really like stoked creativity within me. I was a musician. I was in like a heavy metal band for the high school,
Dude,
which all of us were. All of us, I feel like, were. Dude, I was talking about this on a show just recently. I was like, man, the weirdest show that we ever played was outside of a Ben and Jerry's. It was like, we were like, our band set up outside of Ben and Jerry's ice cream shop, and it was just metal music. And there's like these families like, okay.
Like Megadeth, just like the Pied Piper. Eating your Cherry Garcia.
Exactly. I
love that. Juxtaposition is perfect.
But that's helpful, though. It was helpful, even though I had some of those hard moments. I had people who were fanning that flame. What I would love to get to, you mentioned some of this. You mentioned that a big help for you was meditation, right?
100%.
Something that really changed the game for you. Talk to me a little bit about how you discovered that and just your journey in that.
Yeah. So like I said earlier, I was kind of at that rundown position where I was not happy with what I was producing at the time as, you know, in my life. And I had gotten to a point where I was on my knees with anxiety and depression every single day that, you know, I just opened up books, went online, did anything I could to figure out what it was. Yeah. I need to know what I need to do in order to make this different. To make this a different reality. And I found meditation and I sat down. And meditation, I think people have a million different concepts of it. There's a million different types, but it's also been, you know, it's been beat up in the Western culture, you know, as far as like what it means. And it's, you know, made to look ridiculous or whatever. But I will tell you this, meditation is where I found the word faith for the first time in my life. I grew up in Northside Baptist Church, Okeechobee, Florida, singing in the choir with all old women, right? I'll Fly Away, Victory in Jesus, Old Rugged Cross, all that stuff. Did it every week.
Did you bring them down an octave, or were you singing up there with the alto sopranos?
Oh, dude, I am up there. But, you know, I kind of lost where I was going with this. But
no, you're good, you found faith.
I found what faith was to me. So I had gone through all these different religions. You know, when I grew up, I checked out a Pentecostal church. I went with my aunt, and it was a little much for me, right? And then my stepmother took me to the Catholic church, and I did that for a while. But I never could put a word faith on anything. People would tell me, I have faith in God, have faith in this. And I'm like, I don't understand what that means. Like, I see you saying it to me, and no matter how many times you repeat it, doesn't mean I'm going to absorb it.
Yeah.
Like, I think that it's something you have to stumble upon yourself for what it is that you can place a bigger calling upon, or something that is always there for you. And for me, the first time I was able to put that on there was if I told you to start watching your breath. Most people, we're arrogant beings. We start going, we don't watch it.
Yeah.
We take it over. Take it over. I'm throwing up air quotes audio. Right?
For everybody listening. Yeah.
Right. There's nothing more asinine than being told to catch your breath.
Yeah.
It's coming. It's going to get to you, or you're going to what? Die.
Yeah.
Right. So for me, I had to not breathe for myself in order to properly meditate. Because breathing is the only natural metronome, right, that we have. And that's the only, but it is one of the greatest natural metronomes that there are, right? And if you can observe it at that moment, for me, the first time was I held my breath for about 30 seconds. This is a technique that was given to me. And at the end of that 30 seconds, allow myself to naturally inhale from the lack of air and then let it go.
Yeah.
And as it returned without my effort, that's when I realized I have faith in the return of breath. It is there.
Yeah.
It has always been there until it's not. But essentially, it gave me the ability to say, okay, I do have faith in something. I have faith in a heartbeat. I have faith in my breath. I don't know where it comes from. There's a lot of different views for it. And I think meditation is simply another word for prayer. It's another word for a different type of religious practice that you see amongst all the different slices of the religious pie.
Sure.
The pizza that is religion. I honestly believe that. I think that they're all just a little bit different in their own ways, but have equal tenets that are pretty much saying the same thing. So it's like, this is sausage, this is pepperoni, this is mushroom.
I get that,
You know, but you're all pointed at the Mesopotamian River Valley, right? Like everybody knows where you came from kind of thing. But for me, it allowed me to bridge that first gap. And then meditation allowed me to slow down time.
Yeah.
Slowing down time was critical for me. I had a racing mind, right? I gave you opinions of me. Like, do you get that? And we do this. We give other people opinions of what they think of us without ever having a single clue, right? Based on how we feel about ourselves.
Yeah.
That's bad.
Yeah.
That's real bad. Also, it's stupid. It just makes no sense.
Yeah.
Like we are the creature on this planet with the condition. Right? If you look at it.
Yeah.
Right. So for me, in that faith scenario and that understanding, it gave me the ability to reconcile when I was placing those thoughts in, where I was putting things in between scenarios. I use a coffee cup on the coffee table as an example. Say the coffee table on the coffee cup always pisses me off. Don't leave it on the table. It's gonna cause a ring. It's BS. Stop putting it there. I see it immediately. Blood pressure rises, right? Whole unlimited reasons this could be why. However, we'll use this for an example. As I meditate, over time, I start to get larger gaps between recognizing something and reacting to it. And then it allows to see that was a choice.
Yeah.
And the meditation starts to make those gaps bigger and bigger. And once I realize it's a choice, well, that's the first hurdle, right? I get over that hurdle because then I know that I have the ability to write my own reality.
Yeah.
Right. So after that, I can say, well, why does the coffee cup bother me? What is that doing to me to raise my blood pressure? Well, I grew up poor. You had very few things that looked nice, and everybody had to have something nice, you know, in their home, even though you were all poor, or you'd be judged.
Yeah.
And if you got a ring on that coffee table, somebody was going to judge you. Or my mom used to smack me in the back of the head for leaving it there, right? For the same reason, whatever it is. But that's one of an infinite number of knots that are left in us. Every time we experience something, we have a choice. We start out as a length of rope. You're born as a baby. You're a length of rope, right?
Sure.
Imagine it that way. And every time you come to one of these crossroads, you have a decision to make. Do I feel it? Do I go through it? Do I take this pain on head on and not tie a knot in my rope? Not tie, right? Or do I save it for later?
Yeah.
And you tie it in a knot, right? What happens to a rope when you continue to tie it in a knot?
It's shorter and shorter.
And becomes an unusable mess to you or anybody else.
It's true.
But meditation allows you to sit down with those knots and start to unravel them one at a time. But what's beautiful about it is the deeper you get into a knot, what happens? It becomes easier to unravel. You get more and more that you can pull. You can see the root of it. There it is right there.
Yeah.
If I get in there. So that meditation just allowed me to be able to see where I come from and see what I create myself.
That is, it's
sorry, that was long-winded.
No, that's so great. I mean, what you said was so cool. It's cool to me how, if we boiled it down to how, like, you got to that, like, ultimately, like, you got to faith. Like, this is how I see as faith. And faith is the thing that is really, like, has eased my, like, has untied those knots for me. It has, like, released so much pressure. I had similar things, like, kind of growing up. I'd say probably like middle school, high school, you know. I mean, I guess some people maybe nowadays too are dealing with this more in elementary school. But for me, like, I dealt with so much anxiety and at times, like, honestly, depression too. And I've worked through it in a number of different ways. Meditation has been one that has helped me over the years in certain ways. But, like, I just had so much, like anxiety. And I think mine was really built on this idea. And I still struggle with this from time to time. I'm definitely not a perfect dude, but like was comparing myself or setting expectations upon myself that were like, dude, how am I not here already? You know, like, and even, and some of it looking back is ridiculous, dude. I was in high school wanting to be like a rock star. And I was like, why do I not have a record label yet? Or why do I not have a deal yet? You know? And we were trying, and I would just put this pressure on myself, and I would find myself in moments where I'd be like I remember this pretty clearly. Like I'd be in my bathroom of my home, just like a mess, like not like just sitting there on the floor, just like, you know, and I didn't know anything about, to be honest with you, I hadn't found my faith yet. Now my faith, I'm a Christian. I do believe in, I go to a non-denominational church, I'd say Pentecostally. We're not we don't hold the snakes and all that kind of stuff.
That's what I went to as a kid. I didn't realize
that's wild. That's a different
caught
thing.
Me off guard.
Yeah.
And they were doing something where they come by and touch you on the forehead with this like anointing the sick or something like that. But people were falling. I was only like 13. I was like, this is not.
Now I don't know if I have all the answers to that today in this podcast. I think that's like, another time. But no, like I was so just kind of, I don't want to make this too crazy of a story because I want to get more into your podcast and stuff, but I was like 17, 18, man, just like riddled with, there were definitely seasons of depression, but just riddled with anxiety. And I remember, to long story short, I had started getting in the band scene and all this kind of stuff. My grandparents were the only people that I knew that went to a church. And now this church I love today. I obviously don't live in Georgia anymore, but this church changed my life, or helped be in the process of that. But they went to this church, and basically, long story short, they were like, hey, our youth group, I was 17, 18, either just graduating high school or just about out, is going to El Salvador for a trip. You want to go? And in my mind, I was like, you know, it's a mission trip, obviously.
Yeah, I know.
It's a mission trip, obviously. But I was like, I'll go on a trip. That's cool. You know what I mean? I had like, I don't think at this point, I don't think I had left the country. Maybe I had once, but like, I was like, this is sick. So I went, and zero expectation. I do think obviously like mission trips are an incredible thing for a number of reasons, for faith reasons, but also just like humanitarian and all that kind of stuff and helping out people around. But for this particular instance, I felt like it was a bottleneck season too, if that makes sense, for like all the anxiety that I had. Like it was all kind of coming to this point. A lot of the things that I was just finding myself addicted to or whatever were just getting exposed. And I got to this place down here, and I just saw God in a way that I don't think is often presented. I'm not maybe sure if this makes sense, but presented just every day here in America. You know what I mean? Of just people desperate, loving, all this kind of stuff. And dude, it rocked my world. And I remember it was kind of the last night, we had done some stuff and everybody walked away, and I was sitting in a pool house, and I was just like sitting there like, okay, God, like trying to figure out this prayer thing, right? And I think for me, that was kind of I'm getting to this whole idea of like the meditation and what actually like just eased my anxieties, like praying, and I just said, man, God, if you're real, then you've got to show me. Cause this doesn't make a lot of sense to me. And just through a number of ways, like I really felt in that moment, I could go deeper into it, but like it was made evident to me. And I was like, man, okay. And dude, just from that moment, even from that experience there, I was like, all of my anxieties, and not to say not in later in life that some stuff came back, but it just was like so eased. And I remember getting into this rhythm, like maybe for you have a rhythm for meditation. I was getting this rhythm of I was waking up. Dude, I was not this kind of person until this. I was like waking up at like 7 a.m. and just going to my church, and a bunch of old men would pray at the church, and I joined them and just walked around and do just like that. It untied those knots for me. And it made that just the freedom that I experienced that. And I think the thing was for me, to make this long story short, was my issue of saying, oh man, I got to be there. Why am I not this yet? Why have I not made it? Whatever. This whole burden was released off of me. And I said, hey, okay, if I trust in this, if I believe in God, if I trust that this is the answer, then He's got it. It's not my decision anymore. You know, it's on Him. And so, but I say that to say, dude, it's like, no, that was a long story, like long wraparound, is in the same way that you're finding that faith, dude, that was the thing for me where I was like, this was a cure that I think some people are not some people don't even explore, or just don't even realize like, hey, this is out there. You're searching all these books of like, how do I rid myself of this? And there's other opportunities, you know?
The longer I've done this, the more that things started to become obvious to me. In that if you were to look at the world and all the creatures on it, and you look at humans and you say you've got a field with some rabbits and some ducks and a chicken and a cow, for some reason all of those animals can be next to each other hanging out without an issue. But if a person introduces themselves to that scenario, do you remember when you used to play like Metal Gear Solid, like the video game? Like if you had a flashlight and then you could see it, like that's what the animals do.
Right, yeah.
They scatter away from the human, right? And for me, that started to allow me to recognize that we are, in meditation, that we're in fact simply insane.
Yeah.
We're just recreating an act over and over again. COVID was a big tell. A lot of people had the opportunity to turn around and look at what? The hamster wheel.
Yeah.
When you're not on it over and over again, that's when you can recognize it exists.
For sure. Well, that's it. And that's a huge thing I believe in too, is like COVID broke a lot of consistencies for people. Like the consistency of, so if you're of the Christian faith, of just like going to church, being in community, and that's not even like necessarily a Christian thing, but just being around people and all of that, those consistencies that were keeping you healthy, you take all those away and you realize, oh man, I'm a little bit of a mess. I need some help right now, you know?
It allowed us to sit with ourselves. And if you don't love yourself, how on God's green earth do you expect anybody else to be your friend? You have proven you are unlovable to the person closest to you. Right? And you owe yourself, or you owe those around you, to be yourself. Right? I like to say, paint it black. Right? Say you're issued that basic 8 Crayola when you're, X years old, and they say to you, pick your favorite color. Yeah. Right? My favorite color is black. I love black. Black is dope. Everything black. I want to use black on all of my art. I want to go around here. This is what I do. Young man, black's not a very pretty color. You need to stop using that. You should try blue, use pink. Don't use that. Don't use that. Don't use that. Over and over throughout life, black is not the color you're supposed to be using. Right? Until what? Until you break from never taking out that black crayon. Yeah. The suffering that you have for every time you use pink, red, and blue because they're not you. Right? The moment that you do allow yourself to step up there and just smash that crayon into the board and start scribbling all the black you want. Right? Yeah. And you just feel so compelled. You do it, you do it, you do it. And you finally take a step back. This is the first time I've been me. That's the pupil of the Mona Lisa, and everybody standing at the wall making their own sections. Without you being yourself, there's no I. That iconic stare, right, is gone because you walked up to it and tried to draw a star for somebody else. Now it looks like Kiss, right?
Right. Can you imagine, dude?
Dude, that would be awesome. I want to see the Mona Lisa with a star over the eye now.
Well, dude, there's some people over there throwing paint at it and all kinds of stuff. Maybe it will at some point. Dude.
Leave the art alone.
I know, dude. Like it accomplishes nothing. This is such a sidetrack.
Yeah, it is, but
it accomplishes. There's some people who like threw paint at Stonehenge, and I'm like,
well,
this isn't getting. I don't even know what you're trying to do. Yeah. Oh, crazy, dude.
I feel like if you're going to throw paint at something you can ruin. Like, I know that
makes sense to your point, like, sorry, I derailed you, but
no, we were going to talk about the show. So.
Yeah, I do want to learn more about the show. Cause I feel like what's cool to me to this point in our show here today is that we've learned so much about you. And I feel like you bring so much of yourself, your experiences into this show. And so honestly, tell me a little bit about the history. I know you have a co-host, and so maybe we can talk about him too a little bit.
So Gary comes in and out. Yeah. Gary is the co-host, and I'll square that away. He is, or was, the executive producer of The Ultimate Fighter for like 20 seasons or something.
Kind of a big deal.
Yeah. Right. And I interviewed him a couple years in. We became, best friends or really close friends.
That's
and
cool.
Swapping out. We actually bonded over music because I started producing music after I started, this whole endeavor. I found out that I have an ear for it.
That's awesome, dude. What kind of music?
Dude, any kind.
That's cool.
I actually create something called tragedy tracks, and they're dedicated to guests that have been on, and they generally have some kind of connection to their style, what it is that they've been through.
That's awesome.
I did one for Iden, a trans woman artist that was blackballed from being a firefighter paramedic in Ohio, like kicked out of her unit, all that kind of stuff. Ended up becoming one of the most iconic collage style and sketch artists you've ever seen. Crazy, but super dark, like super dark style. So I did like a grindhouse style.
Okay, yeah,
a whole entire video from it. But I digress. Yeah, right. So the tragedy tracks, that's part of bringing myself to the table, is learning new things and creating the show. So the Tragedy Academy is a show created to bridge societal divides in a judgment-free zone using candor and humor. And what that means to me is I am here to offer a chance for people to translate their stories into something that someone else that doesn't wear the lenses can understand, right? I think that, personally, that we are the sum of our experiences over time, nothing more, nothing less. Just like prescription lenses, no two people will have the same vision based on how they're comprised, right? Yeah. Kind of like those decoder glasses, green or red or whatever. If you look at something, I can see all the stuff in green, but you can't see the stuff in red, vice versa. Well, that's how it works in life. You can't see what it's like to grow up shopping at the Dent and Bent. You wouldn't know what that feels like if you didn't go through it. Yeah. Right? Right. But if I explain it in a way that you can see, you gain my lens. So when you went to El Salvador, you gained a lens. Yeah. Exactly. That lens allows you to view humanity in a new manner. And I think that we have so many beautiful lenses that are just not shared. We're not giving people the opportunity to come up judgment-free, talk about what got them there, talk about how they've gotten through things, laugh about stuff. Like, we're unhinged. Unhinged. And by the way, Gary's doing documentaries right now and working on the Contender series with Dana. But he'll be in shortly for a detention. He slums it with me. It's always been my show. It's been my show since day one. And it's my passion is to give these people that opportunity to sit up there. And man, if you'd have told me 6-7 years ago that I would be sitting with like World Series pitchers, UFC fighters, professional skydivers. It's
incredible, dude.
The doctor at the veterinary clinic of the Abu Dhabi Falconry Hospital talking about how falcons are a critical part of the familial units there and the way that they raise them, and how she didn't get an opportunity to work on any of them until they trusted her because they said, "You're a woman. You're not touching our bird."
Jeez.
Until what? I did also learn something else today. I love to share my fun facts.
Yeah, please do.
This Dr. Mueller tells us apparently they don't have good vision short distance. So these falcons can see stuff from like mega miles away. But if they're coming back to their owner at Mach 1 and they got their arm out there and Chuck walks in between them and the bird,
boom.
Well, the bird will just slap him in the side of the head, feathers and all, and be hurt and have to go to the clinic.
Isn't there that iconic like video of some like World Series or baseball game where the bird like flies right there in between and just snap?
Well, that's like Fabio getting that goose in the face on the roller coaster back in the day. That was like the original meme, right? Like of all the timing in the world, you're coming over, honk, you take a goose to the face. So, long story short, the show is an amalgamation of all these people bringing their experiences to the table, showing and sharing how we're all the same and different, and how we can traverse or overcome those trials and tribulations and be happy on the other side. And we celebrate authenticity, artists, any kind. You come to our show, 18 to 80, blind, crippled, or crazy. I don't care, right? Just show up, be cool, and let's talk.
That's awesome. Yeah. I love that so much. I genuinely, I'd love to get your opinion on this too. I genuinely think that like what you guys are doing, what we're doing with this show, like what, like even like from our friends over for the Florida Man podcast, like it is like, even though podcasts have been around for a while, I genuinely think that this is the future, and it's still continually growing of like how people are consuming information. And honestly, to a point too, I thought this the other day, we're recording this a couple days after that, like the iconic Joe Rogan Trump podcast came out, and whatever you feel about him or not, it's not about that. It's more so about like, I was listening to that and I was like, man, I really feel like we're only a few years away before this is the news. In a sense, and I know that there's some gray areas to outlets, but independent outlets, because I listen to news, and right or left or whatever news outlet you want, I think all of them are pretty uninteresting lately.
It's
like
BS.
All of them are pretty boring. Like there's so much fluff, and it's so easy. Again, both sides, not a political statement, but it's just so easy to see who's paying you. Like for any of those, where it's like shows like you sit down with like a doctor to really talk about this. He's not invested in some particular drug or anything like that. It's just, he's just telling you the science,
And nobody gets paid by us to come on our show ever. I don't care if you're the Sultan of Brunei or the Sultan of the Porta Potty. You get to come in and we're not paying for it.
Yeah.
You got to come here of your own accord and have something to share, and I want to tell you, as we get ready to probably wrap up soon,
here
I want
just
to be
a few
very
minutes.
clear that from the outside in, after the 5, 6, 7 years that I've been doing this, you came in gracefully.
Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate that.
That is hard to do in podcasting because it's real easy to trip over yourself on the way in. You didn't come in with low quality. You came in with well thought out interviews, right? And that is really the key to getting a great product out of this.
Thank you.
You have to bring something to the table that's worth consuming. If you're not going to put the time into it or the effort to create it, why the hell would you expect somebody else to do it? It goes back to asking your friends.
Yeah.
Hey, did you listen to the show yet? Oh yeah, I listened. Well, no, they didn't, because I don't even like it yet.
Yeah. Right.
So why would they be listening to it? And why do I care?
Yeah.
Why is their validation so important to me?
That's true. Yeah. I do. I appreciate that so much, man. I took the time, I think, in trying to develop this to be like, man, I want this to be something that people can enjoy, because, and it's not for the people in so much as it's like something I love. And I realize there's a lot of value in like the conversation that you and I are having today. I hope that somebody listens to this and tries prayer or meditation or something to move towards the unbinding of their anxieties.
Exactly.
But in any other shows, I hope that they do that. I also, like the other day, I had a friend from college shoot me a text, kind of randomly, but he's up in Michigan, and he was like, dude, your podcast is quickly becoming one of my favorites. And he didn't have to say that. I think he actually genuinely is listening.
You would know.
Yeah, I would know. Yeah. And that meant a lot to me, because he also said, this is the other show that I listen to. And I was like, oh, dude, if you're listening to me and this, then that's an honor, dude. I appreciate it.
It's important, man. Yeah. It's so important. It's not just, and you can produce something on any level of equipment. I mean, as long as you're giving your best into it. And like I said, yours is coming in crystal clear. And I think we were having this discussion before that we are a bunch of ear bigots. We do not like sound that's not round, fluffy, compressed, has all those, stereo feel to it. And we will degrade what could be the most beautiful message possible for simply having a little bit of static in the line. It's like an implicit bias. If somebody's missing a front tooth, and you look at them like they're poor or whatever they are, you judge them. In reality, they could be a genius. Yeah. They could be the next Elon Musk or whatever. Yeah. But that tooth takes you out of the game.
Man, it's so true. And I do love that. I know we're going to wrap up here in just a couple of minutes, but that's what I do love about, like, again, like what I'm really impressed with your guys' show. Some of the guests that you've even mentioned here is that people that you may just every day pass by because they're different than you or whatever. And that was a huge goal for me too, is just like, I want to make sure I have people on the show that are different than me. The guy that I mentioned to you, that's a Grammy nominated bass player. That's in the reggae category. He's it's sick. He's such a cool guy, but he's very different than me. And I'm really excited to get to know him because there's a lot of experiences that he has in life that I will never know about unless I'd sit and talk to him. And the reality of the world that we're in right now, I do, and I'm at fault for this. I'm sure maybe you feel the same way too. I'll go into a place and I'll be on my phone the whole time, order my coffee, walk out. And it's like, man, I wish probably hindsight, I wish I would have just gotten on my phone and looked around the people around me,
Dude,
you know?
Got to get some seasoning for your soup.
Yeah, there's actually a great story that I have for this. Actually, the coffee shop that's here local, we have a bunch of them that I love.
It's not the one that judged me earlier.
No, it's not the one. This is another one, but they might judge you, but I'm not going to say their name. There was two people there. So there was a church, not church conference, it's a college conference. Southeastern University was having a conference, and one of their worship pastors was there in this coffee shop. And a lot of these younger people that were there at the conference were freaking out about him being there, right? They're like, "Oh, can I get a picture with you? Can you take a picture, whatever, all this kind of stuff," or talking to him. They did not realize that 2 tables over, John Cena, the actual John Cena, was sitting there at this high top. It's like, dude. But you know what I mean? They're just like in a different world. I don't know. Maybe maybe that paints the same picture, but it's like
you
opening your mind.
Why magicians have jobs.
Right. Yeah.
Like that's exactly how they have a job. You cannot see what's right in front of your face, and they take advantage of it left and right.
For sure. Yeah. That was just a crazy story to me where I'm like, dude, I think the worship leader is a great dude, but dude, that's John Cena standing right next to me.
You know what though? It was probably who was giving off the right feeling at that time.
Yeah, that's actually true. Maybe
I like to say, man, it don't matter how famous you are, you still get diarrhea. Like Beyonce poops.
Yeah.
Like she is not perfect.
Yeah.
We're all there.
Oh man, dude, I will say this. I definitely would love to have you on the show again someday in the future. I
appreciate that.
I always do this with 1 minute left, man. What is something first thing I'd love to hear, like, how can people stay up to date with the Tragedy Academy podcast? How can they follow you? And then also as we go out, maybe just one encouraging thing as we leave the show.
Okay. So to find the show, it's thetragedyacademy.com. You can also look at Tragedy Academy Studios. You can get to both from either one. We do voice work, music production, and boutique podcasting. But the show is thetragedyacademy.com. There's every guest is listed on there. You can find anything you want. All of our social media you can get to from there. We have blog posts, videos.
We'll put it in the notes in the show too.
So as far as actionable ways to change your life in 1 minute, nobody's come back to me yet. Nobody's come back to me yet. I say 30 days, 10 minutes a day, meditation. Come back to me and tell me how your life is. But you have to dedicate it and you have to do it. My best time, in the morning.
Yeah.
You ever walk in, you see those phone booths with cash flying around them back in the day on the game show?
Yeah.
Right? You go in there, you grab them. If the money were thoughts, meditating in the morning is getting to walk into your booth, your mind, and pick up the cash off the floor before they turn on the fan.
That's great. I love that.
Take that time, dedicate it to yourself, pick up that money, clear your thoughts, go take on your day.
Thanks. Well, dude, thank you so much for being on the show. We'll do this again soon.
Awesome. I appreciate you.